Welcome to the Empowering Teaching Excellence Conference 2023. My name is Josi Russell, and I get to speak to you today a little bit about story-based course design. First, just a little bit about me. I am a faculty member here on the Blanding campus of Utah State University in the English department. I started teaching here on the Blanding campus in the year 2000, so 23 years ago. My specialty in the English department is creative writing. I have written 5 science fiction novels and 17 cozy mystery novels and some short stories and novellas. Another important thing about me is that I love adventure. I love to travel. I love to meet new people and hear their stories. I find inspiration for my own stories from the fantastic, powerful places of the world. So now that you know a little bit about me, you can probably begin to see how the things I love, teaching and storytelling and adventure, all intersect to bring us to the concept of story-based course design. So what is story-based course design? It's a term I came up with to describe a process I've been using to design my courses. Story-based course design is building courses around central narratives that cast learners as characters and participants. In today's session, I'm going to introduce you to this concept by showing you examples of story-based courses I designed and have been teaching here at USU for several years. English 2220, Introduction to Fiction, where learners are characters in a choose-your-own-adventure story, complete with wrong turns, dead ends, and unexpected rewards. And English 1010, where learners are participants in a race around the world. They visit every continent and earn their travel tickets by completing course challenges. These courses leverage the stunning power of story to engage learners. They ask students to become adventurers rather than observers. They ask students to step inside the content and actively participate in their own learning. With story-based courses, instead of simply taking a class, students take ownership of it. So let's see what this looks like in an actual course. This is my English 1010 course, and right at the beginning I give students a page that explains how this course may be a little bit different than courses that they are used to. When students have completed the challenges at a certain destination, they're directed to a page with the symbol for the route reveal that they have come to expect. They get so excited about this, and I usually give a little bit of guiding text, something like, your ticket has arrived, you've completed the challenges you needed to earn your ticket to your next destination, but where are you going? For the next set of challenges you'll make your way to, and then I give them I try to find a great image that they'll enjoy seeing and a little bit of text. Awesome Australia is the next place they'll be going. Students get so excited about this, and I'm always impressed with how involved and engaged they are in finding out which destination they get to go to next. After they get their ticket, they're directed to a landing page for the next destination. This one's a little bit more involved and usually has something a little bit more exciting for them. So usually I use a still image on the route reveal and then a video of the country on the landing page for the next destination. In this example, I also give them a little bit of poetry about that country. So they can read Dorothea McKellar's Sunburnt Country as they watch this great video. I love a sunburnt country, it says, a land of sweeping plains, of ragged mountain ranges, of droughts and flooding rains. I love her far horizons, I love her jewel sea, her beauty and her terror, the wide brown land for me. So it just gives them a little bit of an orientation to where they're at and what their next assignments and challenges may entail. They know they're going to be something to do with that country. It's really important when you're doing story-based course design that you stick with the story. They are in Australia, and everything that they encounter should be tied to Australia. All of their assignments, all of their readings, everything should be connected to that narrative that you've set up. Let's talk a little bit more about this concept of carrying the narrative throughout the course, including the assignments and the activities. As you consider how to tie your course content to a narrative, I'll show you how I've done that in English 1010. We'll go to the part of my course where the students visit Nepal. Of course, they're going to Everest. I give them a short introduction to the country and then a short introduction to the mountain. And then I get to introduce them through a fantastic docu-short to a man named Appa Sherpa. He's remarkable, and in this video he talks about his experiences as a guide on Everest. He also talks about some fantastic philosophies about life and the importance of education too. That leads our students to their first challenge, in which they write a short reflection on his philosophy. When they've completed that assignment, they go on to learn more about the actual process of climbing Everest. Already that's a fascinating topic by itself, but it's also where the connections between the narrative and the content come in. I give a little bit of forecasting here. I say, you have climbed, you have fallen, you have conquered. In big ways and small ones, we all know what it feels like to attempt a challenging task. Sometimes we make it to the summit, sometimes we slide back down to the bottom, but we always learn something. As we visit Nepal, I want you to look around, breathe the sharp, thin air. You're on top of the world right now, but there's farther to go. Look up. Above you towers the tallest peak in the world, Mount Everest. In life, sometimes that peak is a degree you're trying to get. Sometimes it's an assignment you're trying to complete. Sometimes it's a job you need to do. There's Everests all around us. What people don't always realize about the climbers who summit Everest is that they don't do it all at once. The route up Everest is not straight. Read below to find out how long it takes experienced climbers to summit the world's tallest mountain. So then I give them an article about how people climb Everest and some videos about what the route looks like and then what it really looks like. Because in this video, it shows how they go up and they come back down, and they go up and they come back down in order to acclimatize. So what does that have to do with English? Well, part of English 1010 is teaching students how to revise for the strongest possible papers. Once they recognize the amount of backtracking and retracing climbers must do to reach the summit of Everest, they're ready to hear that maybe you don't just write a paper in one attempt either. The next page illustrates that for them. I have a graphic that shows the route up the Nepal side of Mount Everest. So what we just looked at shows how it goes up there. And then I've added to that, I've created some extra things in this graphic to show that creating a paper is a similar experience. So while we recognize that to climb Everest you need to start at base camp, well, we can connect that with pre-writing. What stage of the writing process you start with. We have Camp 1, we have Camp 2. Maybe those are like drafting and revising. Camp 3 may be like proofreading. Camp 4 may be like drafting. And you may have to go up and down these a little bit, back and forth between drafting and pre-writing, revising and drafting again. Students are able then to see how what they are doing is like what climbers on Mount Everest have had to do. So that's just one example of how you can connect your narrative to your course content, how you can support those course objectives with this narrative content. And it's so much fun as you dive into it. Now I want to just briefly show you how this looks in a couple of other courses with a couple of different narratives. In my English 2220 class, which is an introduction to fiction, I reasoned that students who are taking such a class are students who like to read. They're people who enjoy or are at least interested in narrative fiction. So I created the entire class as a choose-your-own-adventure story, complete with disastrous wrong turns and foes to be vanquished. The quest leads them through the land of Storyword in search of the Evertome, the mystical book that contains all the stories ever written. While they travel, they read 7 novels and visit the realms those novels come from, learning about various genres and features of fiction. Mentor characters and magic rings teach them about the underpinnings of literary study. Students face challenges where they can earn spinning gold coins to spend on hints for hard questions, special objects to help them in their quest, or extra points. Assignments are framed as conversations between them and various characters in the story to whom they relate their insights. And this is no third-person narrative. The entire course is written in the second-person point of view, casting each student as the hero of this story. As a student reads through the story that is the course, page by page, they have conversations with characters, they encounter other readings, and they're asked to consider connections and thoughts in those readings. And then they're often confronted with choices. In this example, an old woman is slurping soup and eating bread, and she offers them some bread. Then they get to choose. They get to choose whether they refuse the bread, take the bread gratefully, or pretend to be asleep and ignore her. And students have a lot of fun choosing these different things. It's low stakes because they can always go back, but there is only one answer that will lead them on through the course and help them continue. For example, if they choose to refuse the bread, well, that was the wrong answer. They read through a little bit more of the story and find out that the world of Storyword and their own world too probably is being torn apart. As the walls fall down and the rain begins to spatter your face, you realize that this is the end. So that was the wrong choice. So at the bottom, I've placed a guidepost. Go back and try again. This will take them back to the previous page, and they can choose something else. Maybe they want to pretend to be asleep and ignore her. Let's see how that turns out. Well, again, not the right choice. This time, we realized that we've failed to realize the importance of something small and ordinary. A beam falls from the roof, landing just inches from you as he goes on. In fiction, characters, gestures, and objects can have meaning beyond themselves. You should have taken nothing for granted. As the flames rise around you, you realize that this is the end. So, we'll go back and try again. Only when we choose the right answer and take the bread do we get to move on in the story. It's just like those old choose-your-own-adventure stories we all read in middle school, and it's just as much fun. Once you take the bread, you learn, again, that characters, gestures, and objects can have meaning beyond themselves, and you get to go on and analyze the importance of food in Suzanne Collins's The Hunger Games. This has been such a fun class to teach, largely because the students themselves are so enthusiastic about it and so excited about the format. So how do you do this? How do you create a story-based course? You might be thinking, sure, it's easy to create a story-based course if you're teaching Intro to Fiction, but I teach math. But I'm a big believer that anybody can create a story-based course and that any subject can be taught in a story-based format. The principles and the process are pretty much the same, no matter what subject you're teaching. I'm going to show you 6 simple steps to create a story-based course. First, find your passion. Think of something you love. What do you do when you're not teaching? What do you do when you're not working? Maybe it's a sport. Maybe you're a golfer. Or maybe it's gardening. Or maybe it's magic. Or maybe it's music. Any of those things could lend themselves very nicely to the basis for your course. Next, review your course objectives. Certain objectives will work better with certain narratives. So be sure you know what you're trying to accomplish with your course before you start planning the narrative. Next, review course assignments you already have and you think are important in that class. You don't have to reinvent the wheel or come up with new fancy assignments. Many of the ones you have will already work in a story-based course. Now comes the really exciting part, the really fun part of story-based course design. When you get to generate the narrative, you get to decide what kind of story you want to tell with your course, what kind of story you want your students to engage with. You can see a couple of my examples up there. My Choose Your Own Adventure story, the Race Around the World, of course. I also have an English 2010 course where my students build a little library for one of their communities. That's an example of social engagement where they're building a better world. So remember, it doesn't have to be fictional. In that case, it's in their real life and they really are helping their community. The main point is they need to be able to take part in the narrative and make decisions that matter. Maybe you have a mystery to be solved. That would be really fun. You could leave clues throughout your course, leading them to a final resolution of your mystery. You could have a historical narrative, something that's already happened, that's already been written, that's already been played out in the real world, that they then take a character from. You could take any reality show, pretty much, and create a story from that. Once you have your narrative, you're almost there. The next thing you need to do is create course challenges. Now, they're a little bit different than assignments because the assignment plus the narrative equals the challenge. So you don't want to just stick assignments in there that don't have anything to do with the narrative. We talked about that earlier. So an assignment plus the narrative, those two combined, equal a good challenge for your course. The last super important step in creating a story-based course is that you need to think through what kinds of rewards you can offer. You should let the narrative guide you in these. Just like your assignments, they need to be connected to the narrative. Of course, you're going to offer some points because we still have to grade these things and we still have to give a grade to the students at the end of the semester. So points are definitely in there, but be sure to think of some non-point rewards as well. Things that they can just be excited about getting, that are low stakes, that if they don't get them, it's not going to ruin their grade. But if they do get them, it gives them an extra boost of encouragement. Just remember that whatever rewards you offer, they should be symbols of their accomplishments. They should show them that they're doing a good job and make it more fun to come to your course. So that's a quick overview of story-based course design. As you can see, these courses invite students to engage in new ways. They combine the best of faculty mentorship and student ownership in a course. Story-based courses ask students to step boldly into the adventure of their own education. Thank you so much for joining me for this session.